Hey Adventure Kids, I am so excited to be back with you all. I've missed you. And today I am pumped because I get to start a new series with you. And you might see it on the screen behind me, but it's called The Invitation. And just like you would get an invitation from us for the light party, from your friends for birthday parties, Jesus also gives us an invitation to be his friend, but it looks like this. Your Bible in front of you. You know, Jesus modeled a life where he included others, he loved others, and he sacrificed for others. Jesus is a great model of friendship that we can follow, and he gave us the invitation of friendship so that we can give it to others as well. And so today, we're going to look at how Jesus invites us to be his friend, and remembering that through Jesus, we have a friend at all times. No matter what your friends at school look like, no matter what your friends at your sport teams look like, or maybe how you've been treated by others, or what's happening in your family, we all have a friend in Jesus. You know, growing up, I remember feeling a bit left out sometimes in friend groups. I remember one time I was going over to my friend's house. We were all hanging out after our swimming practice, and then it got to the end of the night, and my mum was meant to come pick me up, and she did. And then all of a sudden, I realized no one else was going home. They planned an entire sleepover, and no one told me about that. And you know, that made me feel pretty left out. It made me feel unwanted, and it made me just feel like I wasn't good enough. But I had to remember that Jesus gave me the invitation to be his friend, regardless of how I was being treated. And he helped me understand that in order to have good friends, I needed to be a good friend. So today, we're going to look at how to be a good friend. But first, to do that, we need to know how Jesus was a good friend. You know, in the Bible, there are so many examples of Jesus being a good friend. And today, a few come to my mind. The first one is Zacchaeus, the tax collector. Now, you can see him on the screen behind me, but does anyone know Zacchaeus, or you've heard of him? A couple of you? So Zacchaeus was a tax collector back in the day, and not many people liked him because his job was to collect money, and sometimes he took a little bit more because he was being greedy for himself. So one day, he was in a crowd of people, and he wanted to see Jesus because he heard he was there, but he was a little bit on the shorter side, so he decided to climb a tree to see him. And so, when Jesus saw him up the tree, he stopped and he said, "Zacchaeus, I want to spend time with you." That was something that Jesus did that showed how he was a good friend. He spent time with Zacchaeus, even though not many people wanted to. And you know, the second thing I can think of is how Jesus talked to his disciples. We can see it in John 15, verse 9 to 17. He didn't speak to his disciples like he was their God and they were his servants, but he spoke to them like they were his friends, like they were his equals. In that passage, he said, "Love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend." And that's exactly what Jesus did. And the third thing I can think of is how Jesus treated Mary and Martha. I'm sure some of you might have heard of the story when Lazarus died and Mary and Martha were his sisters, and they were so sad. And you know what? Jesus could have chosen to ignore that. He could have chosen to leave them alone because he didn't understand what they were feeling. But instead, he chose to sit with them and be with them and share in their pain. And you know what? I think that's exactly what a good friend would do. In the same way that Jesus was a friend to Zacchaeus, a friend to the disciples, and a friend to Mary and Martha, he wants to be a friend to us in that way too. You know, remember how I felt when I said my friends excluded me? I felt like no one wanted to be my friend. I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt just so unwanted. And some of you, honestly, you might feel the same way. But I want to remind you that Jesus is your friend, not because he has to be, but because he wants to be. And so what does that mean for us today? What does it mean for us to be Jesus's friend? Jesus sets the perfect example for us on how to be his friend. Just like he was a friend to the people around him, he can also be a friend to us. So we're going to look at 3 different ways that Jesus can be a friend to us and how to engage with Jesus. And I've got some props, and I want you to see if you can guess what those things are. Okay, everyone put up 1 finger. Beautiful. Even you in the back. Beautiful. Okay, the first one is this prop here. Just yell it out if you have some guesses. Okay, I heard some of you get it. The first point is that friends spend time together. We can show Jesus our friendship by spending time with him. And you may feel like you already do that. You may feel like your parents or your leaders have shown you how to do that. But if you don't know how, you can ask them. You know, for me, it looks like waking up in the morning and reading my Bible, having worship music playing on the background of whatever I'm doing, and that makes me feel like I'm spending time with Jesus. So point number 1, friends spend time together. All right, and the next one is, let me pull out the prop and see if you can get it. Just yell it out if you think you know it. Some of you got it. Friends talk to each other. You know, we can talk to Jesus through prayer. Jesus wants us to share everything with him, just like we would maybe our mum or our dad or any of our friends. You know, for me, that looks like journaling. I love to pull out my notebook and write in my journal. They're kind of like letters to God. Sometimes I'll write down what I'm thinking, and sometimes I'll talk to God and tell him what I'm thinking. Even though Jesus knows what we're thinking, knows what we want to say, he also wants to hear us say it to him. So point number 1, friends spend time together. And point number 2 is friends talk to each other. And for the final point, let's see if you can guess this one. Just yell it out if you know it. Beautiful, you're getting the hang of this. Friends listen to each other. So we can pause and take time to listen to Jesus in the same way that he listens to us. Prayer isn't just about telling Jesus what we want him to hear, but it's also about listening to what he has to say. And you know, you may know how you hear what Jesus is saying to you. But if you're a bit confused about that, you can ask your parents, you can ask your leaders. But sometimes you hear his voice through actually hearing a voice. Sometimes you hear him through other people, what they're doing and what they're saying. And sometimes you know what Jesus is saying through your heart. So let's go over those again. I want to make sure that you've got them. So point number 1, everyone put out 1 finger. Beautiful. Friends spend time together. Point number 2, everyone put out those 2. Beautiful. Friends talk to each other. And finally, what's the third one? Friends listen to each other. So let's remember those 3 points when we're wondering how to be Jesus's friend. And so today, you know exactly how to be Jesus's friend. And you may have great friends, you may have no friends, but it's important to remember that even though some people may let us down, Jesus won't. Jesus is a friend that we can always trust. We'll see you later, Adventure Kids.